So, welcome to another lesson. And today we are doing fabric dyeing techniques. We have done methods already in the previous lessons. So, today we are doing the dyeing techniques, the techniques that we use in dyeing. If we talk about techniques, we are talking about, let's say, for example, how you manipulate your fabric before you dye it. The manipulation of the fabric results in the patterns you get when you dye in the fabric. So there are so many dyeing methods, techniques, but we'll look at some of them that are widely used. So the first one is the shibori tie dye with stitch resist fabric dyeing technique. Instead of reading through everything here, I have pictures of them, so we'll be going through them one by one. So let's look at the first one, which is the shibori tie dye with rubber bands fabric dyeing technique. This is where we have the fabric, and then you hold portions of the fabric and tie them with rubber bands. The rubber band, wherever the rubber band is the area the dye will not penetrate through. The dye will not penetrate through any area that is tied. Now, we can use other materials such as raffia, such as a plastic bags, rubber. Okay, the black rubbers, the white rubbers. We can also cut them into strips and use them to tie the fabric in place of rubber bands. So you can use any of this as your resist material. So with this one, you choose the pattern in which you want to tie your cloth. Maybe you want to repeat the tying vertically or horizontal. It depends on what you want to design. But the main technique is about tying small portions of the fabric to resist that area from absorbing dye when the fabric is dyed. Do we get it? That is the first method, which is very simple. And we'll be doing that in our practicals as well. Now, the second one is the shibori tie dye with stitch resist fabric dyeing technique. Stitch resist. This means that you are stitching your fabric. You already have patterns drawn on your fabric. It means you have your fabric, you've laid your fabric on the cloth or the table, and you have marked out the portions you want to stitch, or you have drawn or sketched in pencil on the fabric where you want to stitch. We can, in the picture here, we can see the first one is just in straight lines, and this one is in a design like ogi. In fashion, we call it ogi. The unit repeats, we call it ogi. So this one is just an ogi pattern, and the designer stitched with needle and thread. So you just stitch and pull it like gathers, pull everything to be taut, and then you secure it. That is how we do the stitching. So you stitch all your patterns, pull it to secure each portion or each line before you do your dyeing. So those areas, because you have pulled and the extension there, the solution or the dye is not going to be able to penetrate those tightly knotted areas. Okay, that is for the stitching method. Do you understand? Okay. Then we have the shibori pole dyeing technique. The pole dyeing technique has to do with a pole. Like a pole can be a stick, a branch of a stick of a tree. You can also use PVC pipes, the small ones, yes, like the size of the hose we use for gas. That kind of size. You can use those ones. So anything that is in the form of a pole, you can use it. You can even use that's your meter rule there, and use it as a pole. You only wrap your fabric around it. I have videos too, so you'll be watching. You wrap your fabric around the pole, then you push them together and secure them, hold them in position, and then you dye the fabric. In this case, if you do not have a container that is long enough for your pole, if your pole is long, it's two things. It means you have to get a container in which the pole can lie. If you don't have that option and you have something like a bucket, it means you are going to be holding your pole and pouring the dye over the fabric from the top. So that one depends on the equipment you have. But ideally, we are dyeing whichever way you use to dye. In this case, we are using the pole dyeing technique. So that is one of the techniques. You can see the effect it is giving over here. Let's move to the next one, which is the Sri Bori folding technique. This is where we fold in certain patterns. Your folding will give you different types of patterns because we have different folding techniques. We have the ones that you can fold in triangles. We have the ones that you can pleat before folding. So there are so many ways. So if you look at this area, the dyeing pattern can be customized by folding the fabric in different ways. There are so many different ways, unless we start practicals. Then you use clamps like pegs. Have you seen those clamps that people use when we were doing the T square and this thing? Yes, that's the one that is like a metal piece, a clamp. It's not even metal. Let me just take it down. Yeah, that kind of clamp. Or we have the plastic ones too. In fashion, we have some plastic clamps you can also use just to hold the folding together, and then you dye the fabric. So depending on the technique you used in folding, it will give you this. These are two different techniques if you check very well. So this is done using the folding technique. Now we have the ombre deep dye technique. This is a technique where you obtain different shades of colors on one fabric, or the same color in different shades on one fabric. What I mean is, let's take the picture here as an example. With this fabric, we can see a green, then probably it moves to a lighter green, then it fades into blue and green is joining somewhere together, then it fades into a lighter blue, and then into a blue. It's one fabric. The fabric is not joined, it's one. Now, how did the person dye this? Yeah, I'll tell you. But I will explain from the other perspective. So another way of doing this ombre is that your main color here is blue. Your color is blue. So if you remember the tinting method we did for colors, when you are doing gradation, you have about 5 circles or squares when you are illustrating in a sketch pad. So you have your color blue, and then you add a little white, or first of all, you paint the first box with the raw color, with its intensity. Okay, raw like that. You will get the exact blue color that you took first. Now, the next time you want to paint the next box, that same blue that you have in a palette, you don't add any color to it again. Once you take a little bit of blue into a palette, you are working with that one. You don't come and add any blue. So after painting the first raw color, the blue or the hue, you come back and add a little bit of white. Then you paint the next step. After you paint the next step, what happens? Because it has been a little bit tinted, it will look lighter than the original color. Then again, the same paste or solution, you add another white. It will become lighter again than the first color. Then you paint the third space. If you keep doing that, when you finish and your work dries, you are going to have all blues. But this time, you are going to have shades of blues. Okay, from a lighter version to a more deeper, like that, till you get to the original color. That is another method of ombre deep dyeing technique. Either you are doing it in one color or you are doing it in different colors. Do you understand? Now, this is how it is done. You have your dye stuff or your dye bath. You've mixed your dye. You've mixed it. Now you are going to, so this is our fabric, 2 yards. You are going to section the fabric, maybe after each 10 inches, then the next color comes. Okay, so you have the lines on your fabric like that. So let's assume we are dyeing the first color, which is the shades of blue. In this case, you are going to dip the whole fabric into the dye for a short period, and then you lift it because you want the first part of your fabric to be very light. So when you lift the fabric, you lift it like this. You lift the whole fabric like this. So you know where your first line is. So you will re-dip the fabric into the dye up to the first line, leaving the first part because you've gotten your lighter color. So you dip this one in, it will absorb again, and then you lift it. Then from the next line, you dip it. So you'll be dipping them until you get to the last point. Because all of them have taken a longer time in staying in the dye, they will take different shades of the color. So you will get the shades of blue on that fabric, which is the ombre. That is if you are doing one color. If you are doing separate colors like what we are seeing here, you can even do 5 colors if you want. It's the same thing. But this time around, you aren't going to dip the whole fabric in the dye because some parts are of a total different color. So the part that is blue, you dip that part inside the blue. The part that is yellow, you dip that part inside. However, one advice I'll give for this method is if you are doing it in different colors, just note that we are doing this dyeing manually with your hand. And so sometimes the advice people give is instead of you standing by the dye stuff and hanging your hands in the air for God knows how long because of the effects you are looking for, it is better to hang something like a drying line over your work and use peg to hold the work on the line so that the rest that is supposed to be in the dye will be in the dye. Then you're controlling that one than holding the fabric with your hands. So that is an option. Then number 2, if you are dyeing with a lot of colors, maybe you are doing 4 colors, the best thing is to start with the lighter color. You know, a color like yellow, assuming you are dyeing yellow and black, the truth is that the black will overpower the yellow. So you won't have a lot of problem even if you dip your fabric inside the yellow slightly and lift it, because you come and dye the base with black, it will take it away. It will take the yellow away. But if you are dealing with colors like red and yellow, you should be careful because it will not give you orange. So in certain cases, you don't dip the whole fabric inside. You just dip that part of the fabric you want to dye, but you do all the portions in different colors. So that is for the ombre dip dye technique. Then we move to the no wax batik technique. This one, you see they say no wax. They are saying, but with batik making, we use wax. Over here, they don't use wax. What they do is that they use glue instead of wax. Glue like white glue. You know white glue? Yes. So you would use the white glue to draw patterns on your fabric. You don't just start drawing patterns. You may have used pencil to sketch something that was lying on your fabric. And then after that, you use the glue over your sketches on the fabric. Then when it dries, you now dye your fabric. Okay, looking at the picture here, the person only dyed once, which means the background of the fabric was white. White, it's not orange, it was white. And so when the person used the glue and dyed, the person dyed orange. After that, the person removed this thing, glue, and got the white background. Now, You can still do the same thing like we do in batik. Assuming you want to dye this in two colors. Let's assume you want to dye a coffee color in addition to the orange you have. All you have to do is after dyeing the first orange, you don't remove the glue of the first one. You do another pattern on the parts that are orange, and then you dye again, maybe this time in coffee or brown. Mind you, brown too is stronger than orange the way it is. So, or well, let's say black or a deeper color. So when you dye and you are finally done, then you now peel off your glue. This means you will get white, orange, and coffee, three colors. Do you understand? So this is how you can do the no wax batik technique. Any questions here? All right. So be listening carefully because when we get to the practicals, we are going to do some of. We can't do all, but we'll do the ones that are a bit difficult. So okay, or we'll do most of them. Then we have the low water immersion fabric dyeing technique. Now, to to get a subtle effect, use a larger container and more water. You can vary the results by using multiple colored dyes. So if we say low water immersion fabric dyeing technique, what does it mean to you? Immersion fabric dyeing technique.
And I think low water immersion. You don't have to put it in
Uh-huh.
it shouldn't be in water for a long time. It shouldn't be in a solution for a long time.
Yes, it shouldn't be in. And aside that, we don't you don't fetch a lot of water and pour on the dye stuff, the mixture. Okay, you don't pour a lot of water on the mixture. If you look at this design here, you can even see that some parts of the white, something has been used to resist those parts of the white. Now, if you want to do such a method, there are so many ways, but one way is to just scrunch the fabric, which means you have laid the fabric, then you use your hand to fold the fabric together in a round form, then you hold them together and then dye it. It will give you this patches, this thing. So the low water. One thing about low water is if you are doing it, you need to be present with your dyeing and be turning it also, so that the part you want the absorption to take place will take place. Okay. So that is for low water. Now, painting fabric with dye or watercolor technique. This is very clear. You paint your fabric. You lay your fabric on the this thing, and then you paint it with your dye, but you mix the dye and the chemicals thick, and then you use it to paint your fabric. So this is an example of a fabric somebody painted. So you can see the person painted in such a way that the colors, the natural colors or the natural hues are overlapping some of the, and then giving another effect somewhere else. So this is a painting technique. However, aside this type of painting too, you can intentionally paint characters or scenes. Okay, like a marketplace. You have painted something like a marketplace in the whole of your fabric. You'll be seeing those African fabrics, and those ones usually are handmade, and they should be expensive, but we don't understand sometimes. Yes, so that is one of the methods. All right, painting of the fabric. Any questions about this so far? Any questions? No. Okay. So in the absence of questions, then we'll end that class